It started with nothing more than a child's doodle, just a few messy lines on a napkin, drawn absent-mindedly while waiting for a meal. But little did anyone know that simple sketch would change two lives forever. No one paid much attention. At first, it was just another busy evening at the small diner, the kind of place where conversations blend together like background music, and the clatter of dishes fills the air. The boy, no older than 7, sat quietly at the corner booth with his mom. He was the kind of kid who didn't make a fuss, who found joy in the little things, like drawing on whatever paper he could find. That night, his canvas was a napkin. With short, chubby fingers, he gripped a blue crayon and started sketching. He wasn't trying to create a masterpiece, just something to pass the time while his mom scrolled through her phone, waiting for their food to arrive. His strokes were unsteady, his lines wobbly, but there was something undeniably charming about his work. A small, quirky figure with a lopsided smile, a top hat perched on its head, and arms stretched wide like it was welcoming the world. The boy giggled to himself, pleased with his creation. He carefully folded the napkin, tucked it beside the ketchup bottle, and turned his attention to his plate when the waiter arrived. In the rush of dinner and conversation, the doodle was soon forgotten, but not by everyone. A man sitting at the counter had been watching, not in a creepy way, just the kind of glance someone gives when something unexpected catches their eye. He had come in for a quiet meal after a long day, his mind heavy with decisions, deadlines, and the never-ending weight of responsibility. He was the kind of man who carried himself with quiet confidence, the type whose presence commanded a room, even if he didn't say a word. His suit was slightly wrinkled, his tie loosened at the collar, the first signs of exhaustion creeping into his features. But as he stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, his eyes kept drifting to the little boy and his napkin doodle. There was something about that tiny sketch, something oddly familiar. Maybe it was the expression on its face, playful, carefree. Maybe it was the way the lines seemed to dance across the napkin, full of life and energy. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because it reminded him of something from long ago. As the boy and his mother got up to leave, the napkin was left behind, crumpled slightly, but still intact. Without really thinking about it, the man reached over and picked it up. He studied it, turning it over in his hands. And for the first time that day, he smiled. A real smile, the kind that felt like a break in the storm. He slipped the napkin into his pocket and finished his coffee. What the boy didn't know, what no one in that diner knew, was that this man wasn't just any customer. He was one of the most powerful CEOs in the city, a visionary known for building empires, for turning ideas into reality. And at that very moment, something sparked inside him, an idea, a possibility. He had no way of knowing that this small, innocent drawing was about to set off a chain of events that would change his world and the boys in ways neither of them could have ever imagined. And it all started with a single doodle on a napkin. For days after that evening at the diner, the napkin stayed in the CEO's pocket. At first, he wasn't sure why he had kept it. It was just a child's drawing, something most people wouldn't think twice about. But every time he reached into his jacket and felt the soft, crumpled paper between his fingers, he couldn't bring himself to throw it away. Something about it kept tugging at him. Late one night, as he sat alone in his office, overlooking the city skyline, he unfolded the napkin once more. His desk was covered with documents, contracts, and emails waiting for his response. Yet it was the simple doodle that held his attention. The little character, with its wide open arms and crooked top hat, stared back at him as if it had something to say. He leaned back in his chair, lost in thought. It had been years, decades even, since he had drawn anything himself. As a kid, before business, before money, before all of this, he had loved to sketch. He would fill notebooks with ideas, creatures, designs for things that didn't yet exist. But somewhere along the way, life had taken over. College, work, responsibility. The things he used to love had been pushed aside, buried under the weight of success. Now staring at this doodle, something old and forgotten stirred inside him. An idea began to form. What if this wasn't just a random drawing? What if this little character, so full of life and charm, had the potential to be something more? The next morning, he made a call. His company had a creative division, a team of designers and animators who worked on branding, advertising, and sometimes even product development. He summoned them to a meeting, carefully smoothing out the napkin on the conference table. As they arrived, the team exchanged curious glances, unsure why their CEO, a man known for numbers and deals, was suddenly interested in a child's drawing. "I want to know if we can do something with this," he said simply, tapping the napkin with his finger. "A character maybe, a mascot, something fresh, something people will connect with." The designers leaned in, examining the doodle. It was rough, but there was something undeniably special about it. They saw what he saw, an energy, a playfulness, something that felt real. But where did it come from? One of them asked. The CEO hesitated. He didn't even know the boy's name. That realization bothered him more than he expected. Meanwhile, across town, the little boy went about his days, completely unaware of the impact his small drawing had made. He had no idea that a powerful businessman was searching for him, that something he had created had found its way into the hands of someone who could change his life. At home, his mother worked late hours, often too exhausted to do much more than make sure he finished his homework and got to bed on time. She loved him fiercely, but struggled to keep up with everything. The boy didn't complain. He kept himself busy, always drawing, always creating little stories in his head. He didn't have many friends, but in his mind, his drawings were his companions. They understood him in ways that people sometimes didn't. Then, one evening, his mom came home with an unusual look on her face. "We got a call today," she said, setting down her purse. "From a company, a big one." The boy blinked up at her, confused. "What kind of company?" She hesitated. "I'm not sure, but they said they wanted to meet you. Something about a drawing." The boy's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? The next day, they arrived at a tall glass building, so different from the small apartment they lived in. The boy's fingers curled around his mom's hand as they were led through the sleek lobby, past people in expensive suits, and into a bright, open office. And there, sitting at the desk, was the man from the diner. The boy recognized him immediately, though he didn't understand why he was here. The CEO smiled, a genuine warm smile. Not the kind people used in business meetings, but the kind that felt real. "I believe this belongs to you," he said, holding up the napkin. The boy's eyes widened. He had forgotten all about it. "This little guy," the CEO continued, pointing to the drawing, "he's special, and I think the world should meet him." The boy didn't know what to say. No one had ever told him his drawings were special before. He had drawn hundreds of little characters, but no one had ever noticed, until now. His mother, still unsure what was happening, cleared her throat. "I'm sorry, but what exactly is this about?" The CEO leaned forward, excitement in his voice. "I want to turn his character into something real, a brand, a story, maybe even a whole animated series. But I don't want to do it without him." The boy's heart pounded. A whole world of possibilities had just opened before him. But with opportunity comes uncertainty. Could something this incredible really happen? Would people like his drawing? What if it all fell apart? And then there was the biggest question of all, the one no one had dared to ask yet. Why was the CEO doing this? Was it just business? Or was there something deeper, something personal, driving him to bring this little doodle to life? The answers would come soon enough. But for now, the boy could only sit in awe, staring at his napkin, realizing that his life was about to change forever. The boy's hands trembled slightly as he looked at the napkin in front of him. He had drawn so many little characters in his short life, but this was the first time anyone had cared about one. And not just anyone. A man in a suit, in a big office, with a company that could turn a simple doodle into something real. It was overwhelming. His mother shifted in her chair, still cautious. "I don't understand," she said slowly. "Why him? Why this drawing?" The CEO exhaled, as if trying to find the right words. He glanced down at the napkin, then back at the boy. "Because I see something in this," he said. "Something I lost a long time ago." For a moment, the office was quiet. Then, the CEO leaned forward, his voice softer. "When I was a kid, I used to draw just like you. I loved creating characters, coming up with stories. But somewhere along the way, I stopped. I told myself it wasn't important. That business was what mattered. But when I saw your drawing that night at the diner, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I remembered what it was like to just create, without overthinking, without pressure. And I realized I wanted to bring that feeling back." The boy listened carefully. He didn't fully understand everything, but he knew one thing. This man wasn't just talking about business. This meant something to him. His mother still looked unsure. "And what does this mean for my son?" The CEO smiled. "It means he's part of this. Every decision, every step. We do this together." He turned to the boy. "You'll help us shape the character. Give him a story. Make sure he stays exactly the way you imagined. No one else can do that but you." The boy swallowed, hard, gripping the arm of his chair. The thought of his little doodle turning into something big was exciting, but also terrifying. What if people didn't like it? What if he messed up? As if sensing his fear, the CEO slid the napkin closer. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently. "But just know, what you created is already special. The world just hasn't seen it yet." The boy hesitated, then slowly reached for the napkin. He ran his fingers over the crinkled edges, staring at his own drawing. It was just a doodle, just a silly little sketch. But maybe it could be more. What followed in the next few months was something neither of them could have predicted. The character, now officially named after the boy's own childhood nickname, became the face of something bigger than anyone expected. The creative team worked day and night, shaping a story around it, bringing it to life in ways the boy had never imagined. And through it all, the CEO and the boy built something unexpected, a friendship. What started as a simple drawing on a napkin had turned into late-night brainstorming sessions, sketches scattered across a giant conference table, laughter over ridiculous ideas. The CEO had taken on the role of a mentor, not just in business, but in life. And the boy, without realizing it, had given the CEO something just as valuable. He had reminded him why he fell in love with creativity in the first place. But success didn't come without challenges. The company's board members weren't convinced at first. They saw numbers, not art. They questioned whether investing in something drawn by a child was worth the risk. The CEO fought for it, time and time again, standing his ground even when others doubted. He knew this wasn't just about business. This was about proving that something small, something pure, could turn into something extraordinary. Then, one day, the moment arrived. The character was ready to be revealed to the world. A new brand, a new story, all built from the simple creativity of a 7-year-old boy. The night before the big launch, the CEO and the boy stood in the office together, staring at the giant screen displaying the final version of the character. What if people don't like it? The boy asked quietly. The CEO smiled. They will. How do you know? Because it's real. And because it came from you. The boy took a deep breath, nodding. For the first time, he believed it too. When the character was introduced to the world, the response was overwhelming. People loved it. They connected with its charm, its simplicity. They saw the same magic in it that the CEO had seen that night at the diner. But more than that, they saw the story behind it. The story of a child's imagination, of an unexpected friendship, of what could happen when someone believed in something small and gave it a chance to grow. As time passed, the boy's life changed in ways he never expected. His drawings weren't just drawings anymore. They were stories, products, something people cherished. But no matter how big things got, he never stopped doodling. He never stopped creating, because now he knew something he had never known before. His ideas mattered. And as for the CEO, he had built many things in his life. Businesses, brands, wealth. But this was different. This wasn't just another success story. This was something he had almost forgotten. The joy of creating just for the sake of it. And that, more than anything, was what made it all worth it. One night, long after the world had fallen in love with the character, the CEO sat at his desk, looking at something he had kept all this time. A small wrinkled napkin with a crooked little doodle on it. He smiled. It all started with this, and in some ways, it always would.